Okay. Hey there, everyone. I am going live. I decided to do this today because I needed to. I needed to talk about a few things because found myself yesterday a little upset, quite upset, as a matter of fact, and I always know that that's because I'm not dealing with something. I think that's for all of us in a certain way. But for me, it was a little different. And so I had to create something with a little different title, saying, it was receiving the order of the universe was challenging. We never know who we're going to become when we come into this world, but we do know that we experience ourselves through consciousness. And we will each experience consciousness in an entirely different way. And that's what came up for me. And when you can't own, or when you aren't owning your individual way, or however you evolve, then life becomes challenging. And that's what was happening for me. And then sometimes you can do something or live a life that's so different than anything else, which we're meant to do. But then again, when you're not owning that, you're not honoring why you were born. You're not honoring the reason that you came into the world, no matter what that journey might have been. And mine has been really long, and a lot of it really, really difficult. And so I have to talk about this today. The reason I was angry last night, and I did a video earlier talking about this, is because I could see what was happening in the world, and I knew why it was happening. But I would hold back and not talk about it, and make things worse for myself, because this odd thing that I have, I'm not going to talk about. And I've always been the person where I said I don't want people not to own themselves, because I lived that all of my life, most of my life, and I'm 75 now. So today and to now is when I'm going to end that. When I did a recording with a couple of people who were in my work earlier today, and you'll see that on my YouTube channel. But I did that because they were perfect to talk about this work in a completely different way. But I'll give you just a little bit of background if you don't know me, if you've never seen me, so you will understand. This was never anything I thought I was going to do in my life. And that could happen for you, where you end up in a completely different career place that you never imagined, because we only evolve or grow in our consciousness. And that's changing all the time. It's changing within us, and it changes in the world. And then we can develop different skills or talents or abilities that we never know. The first part of my life, I struggled so much. It's a whole nother long story, which I will give at some point. But I will just take you to where I started receiving guidance, and that was in 1989. And I've told this story as well, but I'm just going to give you the beginning of it if you've never heard it. But I sat down to start receiving automatic writing only because I learned about it by listening to someone who had done it. I read an article, actually, which was how it came about. And I needed help. I was going through a bunch of changes in my life, many of them, which I've done so many times. And I said, let me see what happens if I sit down and try to receive some information. And over a few days, nothing happened. I'd been meditating before, so that was something that wasn't new to me. But then after a few days, something happened. And it was so powerful because it felt like literally something took over my body, my hand or something, and I just started writing. And it became so uncomfortable. And I said, who's speaking to me? And this is what I heard. We all hear something when we pay attention. But I heard, this is another part. This is your higher self, or another part of you, however you want to think of it. And then I heard, if it makes you uncomfortable, you can call us whatever you like. Now that's what I remember hearing. And I just said, Wilhelm. I wrote an article the other day where I put that story in. So that's on my blog as well. And you'll have a link to that so you can see it. Because I didn't know what was happening. I was just uncomfortable. But I was receiving information that I knew was helping in some way, because it was wisdom. It was information that I didn't know, that I couldn't have access to. And But because of that, I'm still, this is odd, and I'm not going to tell people about it. Only a few people actually knew. And then when it started to go out to a few more people, then I started receiving judgment. So I stopped. I said, I'm not going to talk about this at all. And then something happened later where someone, this was a little while later, someone found some of the messages and accused me of plagiarizing, that I was copying this from someone else, that this great work that they had read and I was copying it. So then I said, okay, I'm not going to tell anyone anymore. That's exactly what happened. So I started shutting down. Then 2008, it got different because other people started finding it at an office that I had at that time. And they asked me to send it to them, and that's what I started doing. So I just started sending them the messages, never knowing why they were so interested in them or why they wanted to have them. And it kept going from there. Someone else created the website that has the messages. I wasn't going to do that. I continually hid from this because it didn't make sense. I was a vocal coach. That's what I thought my new life was going to be. I was doing that at the same time. But I had started around the same time, and I thought this is going to be the rest of my life, and that's all I'm going to do. And this other thing was happening, and people started calling me to use this, and I'm resisting. But then it's kept changing because I knew that I knew more that I couldn't explain, and I knew it could be helpful probably to someone if I could like get over my fear of it, and that's what I had to do. And so the first entry of me getting over my fear was writing a book in 2019 called Overcoming Fear, A Guide to Freedom, because I knew that what had happened for me for most of my life was fear. That's what stopped me from doing so many things, stopped me from putting out this works, everything. But it was beyond that. I'd had it since I was a child, which I could never have explained to anyone. But I knew that that was part of my problem. Then I was introverted. That's so putting yourself out there was really difficult as well. Then in 2021, so I'm just going to give you this part of the story because this is where we are right now. In 2021, I'm after we were coming out of the pandemic and all of that stuff, I had started receiving different types of messages in 2020 where I knew the world was going to change. I just received different messages, and my guides, they were using the word restructuring. I'd never received that word before. And then it started to be explained to me that we were going to go through a generational change in our world. And I had been given this information. That's what I heard in 2021. And they said that and I said, well, why would I have it? So because of everything I'd gone through, because of everything I'd been writing for all of these years. It's been 37 years now. And so I put that away. I said, this couldn't possibly be happening. And then because I resist everything. And then they said, nope, you have to do this. And then they tell me that if I were to meet someone, I would have received a message on their birthday in 2012. That made no sense either because I didn't understand it. I come into my home after that and I go to my computer and I'm led to a folder and I open it. It says Wilhelm on there. And the messages were mainly 2012. I'm like just making light of this. And someone else told me, Roger, don't you remember that was the Mayan calendar year that it ended and people thought the world was going to end? I said, that's fascinating. And then I went back to look at the message that I received on that date, on December 21st, 2012. And it said one word, wait. And then I read the message and it made sense. I said, the world's not ending. You're creating a new one. And we've given you all the information to be able to do that. I said, that doesn't make sense. So then the birthday thing, that became the most striking because I couldn't ask people at first, but then I had to because it was there. So then whenever I would meet someone, I would ask them their birthday. I would then go and find the message. It didn't have anything to do with the year they were born. I knew that very clearly. It was just about their date. And I would read them the message and they would freak out. I joined a group because I needed to test this further because I didn't beyond my limited circle. And in this group of people, and these are really professional people, so I was intimidated. I said, they're going to think I'm out of my mind, but I have to do this because I need to know. And when I started doing it, they all like kind of, how did that happen? And in the one group, this was a really high-end networking group at the time. And there was one guy, everybody else was starting to do it and asked for the birthday. And then this one guy, he wasn't going to do it. Then they convinced him. And then I read his. And then the look that came over his face was just shocking. And then he took over and he started telling the entire group what that message meant. And he revealed things about his life that he had never talked about before. But that message gave him the permission because he knew that that was what he was meant to do. And so this message just confirmed it. Then I did another thing at some time. People started, this was a podcast guy, and he said, "What can I do for you?" I said, "Send me people, and I just want to ask them, ask a question or whatever." I just did that. And they would come in, and then I would do the same thing, find their birthday, and then it's like the questions would be answered. I still didn't understand what was happening. Then in 2021, again, I doubted this, and I went and I had 2 Akashic Records readings done. I'd never done anything like that. You must understand, I was never putting myself in a spiritual community or anything like that. That was never who I thought I was. I did things like that and studied and went through all that, but beyond that, that was it. And so this was something different that I had to accept. So then they told me that this is what I heard very clearly. You need to put people into a group, because if you come together, it'll be much better as you're moving through this really chaotic time is how it might feel. But it'll be great if you put people together and you all come together and you'll heal just like you did. And I can recount everything that I've gone through and all the healing, mind-body healing that I've experienced, which made no sense to me, and I hid it. I didn't even want my doctors to talk about it when I was seeing doctors so much at that time, but I don't have that anymore. I used to have chiropractors. I used to have all of those things. I don't have any of that. And so they said, this is what's going to help so many others. When I put people into, I just took people into this program. I just said, I have to test this. I just used 31 messages basically that came from this information. And I took it all from 2012 and I put it in there and just had people move through it. Let's see what happens. And I freaked out again because they changed so quickly, so fast that I didn't understand why that was happening. Then Wilhelm says, well, that's how evolution happens. We learn things, we give it to others. Their way is then easier. But this was different because I started to discover something else. And I couldn't have known this until we started to have artificial intelligence, to be quite honest. They're saying these messages are aligned with energetic changes in the world and astronomical changes. I've never studied astrology. I've never studied anything like that. But it was coming out. It was being revealed that that's what was happening, which is why I was healing, which is why this work was so effective on anyone who used it, because it was bringing them some alignment. And this morning, when I did the video with the 2 people in that in my group who were in there, you can listen to it, and they talk about what came up for them. And it was surprising to me because they explained the process, how it happened, things that were opening and things that they didn't know that they had. One lady said she was uncovering trauma that she didn't even know that she was still carrying. And then the other person, this guy, he's just opened up so much. It's just astonishing. And he's been my biggest cheerleader because I couldn't know to the degree that how effective this was. But then the thing that was most striking is it started being shown that this was a consciousness raising system that I had developed. And it was showing how human consciousness evolves over time. We do it day by day. I wasn't receiving information that way. They were starting to say, revealing that this was quantum. I didn't know what that meant. I hadn't talked about it. I didn't use it, but they started showing it. And then they started showing me that on every single day, especially the years from 2008 until now, that each day there was a series of messages that would deal with one particular aspect of human existence, one particular aspect that every single human wants to know. And I was demonstrating and writing down how it evolves over time. And if more people did it, that would change their lives, and then it would change the world, because we're the only ones who are creating the world. It's every human whenever we might live. So before I was going to, when I started doing channeling in 2021, I was finally convinced after all of this, because one Akashic Records reading said, yes, you have ancient memory, which I denied again, because it didn't make sense. This was kind of weird stuff to me. And they said, you have ancient memory, and talking about my past and what I had done. But she says, in this lifetime, what you're meant to do is to open the minds of individuals. Because what happened was, before I started doing the live channeling, I asked, well, why would I do this? Because I'm arguing, really, sitting on the side of my bed, arguing, I'm not going to do this. I said, well, you're going to see billions of people who have forgotten who they are. You're going to see them forget themselves, forget what they were here to do. And also you're going to see them forget their moral compass, basically, because we all have it, but we just lose it at different times. And because I had gone through all of this, I could bring it in. And said that made no sense. But then they say, yes, and we've given you a philosophy. It's a new philosophy because your world needed one. It's called your life operating instructions. And they said, because there's certain things that you haven't dealt with in your society, and I was given that information. And I'm thinking, why me? Then they started reviewing my life and telling me all the places I had been and why why I had lived it, and why each person is living something that they're meant to do the same thing. I was just meant to bring a guide so that more people could do it. That was the life that I accepted, obviously. But I doubted it all the way. Then it got to the place where I wouldn't want to look at the messages. You see, because I have an archive of them. And I started to notice what was happening. I would look at a message from a year ago, and it would tell me exactly what's happening in the world now. I go, how could that have happened? And then they started taking it beyond that. There was an organization even within the messages on a particular date. And then they started talking about energy again, quantum energy, and how the planets change, and we have information. All we pass on to one another is information. And that changes over time as we learn different things as humans. People have developed astrology, for instance, and numerology and all sorts of things over the years because they started interpreting energy and how it would affect someone, which is why when you read your astrological report or something, or your astrological sign, sometimes it makes sense to you. You don't understand why. Because there's information. All humans operate on information. We just shape it at different times. So then when I was going to starting to do the live channeling, they said, you're going to go back years. We're going to take you back 500 years. And they took me back to Martin Luther. They said, because you have to shift so many different things, even about the religion or breaking free, because that's how we evolve. And they talked about his difficulty because he knew that there was a better way, or a way that more people could understand who they are if they broke away from the tradition of what they had. Then they started telling me about the United States, and that was the best one yet, because they said the United States would lead the way. I go, that made no sense. They said, yeah, because it's going to change. And there was an astronomical, galactic reason for that. And they started talking about that in terms of the planet Pluto, which again, I didn't understand. That's in the article I wrote the other day, and you can read it. I'll give you the link for that, because they started to tie it all together, and I had written it all down. But owning that and telling others was really difficult. And because of that, I kept making my life worse. That's what happens when you can't own the next part of your life, and whatever it might be, things get terrible for you. And that's what was happening. I made a video, I did an article a while ago talking about all the people I owed money, because I couldn't bring in the kind of money that this should have been commanding, because I couldn't own it. But that's not just me, that's anyone. And then that's why they said, we're going to go through this period. I read to my members this morning, the first message when I did channeling, it was about power, money, love, and control. They said, these are the things that humans use throughout civilization to control one another or hold each other back. And that's why they said we had to do something new. And that's what they had given me. is to bring something new to the world that could change. But today, after I went through my anger last night, because I could see things happening and I knew the answers that people could have if I could own it. And that's why I did this little thing earlier. But then I showed them, I said, oh, you can still be the hero. That's the message that I received last year on March the 25th of 2025. And then I hear today that tomorrow is this date where all these things are coming together, and each person is supposed to remember who they are. Each person. It wasn't just about me. I was the guide, and I was accepted to bring this information in. And so I'm going to read this to you because it was so surprising to me when I looked at it. That was the other thing that would happen. I would start to look at things and I didn't want to see it. You know how you hide from yourself? Yeah, I did that quite a bit. And so I thought I can no longer do that. So that's just why I'm actually changing everything, because I never want people to hide from themselves, because I do know the value of everyone. And I could see that. That was a downfall for me. It was made my life a little difficult because I could see that. And I would tell people, I can't see anything wrong with you. I know what your life path is. I know who you're meant to be. And even when I would listen back to channeling sessions, it was so shocking because someone would ask a question and I could answer it. It could answer it right away. I'm just going to say this because I don't know these things and I don't remember it. So I'm just going to bring that up. When I did a couple of interviews. I did Alex Ferrari, Next Level. So that was probably the biggest one that came out years ago, a couple of years ago. And he said at the end, I've worked with a lot of channelers, but you answer right away. You'll hear that on the video. I didn't know what he meant. And then I had to acknowledge that I had a direct connection that was so different. This is why I said I was not like the other channelers, which is why I wasn't in that community. I wasn't doing that. And I was doing something a little different. My life it's not better. It doesn't make it any better. It's just different. We all have something individual we're meant to do in the world. And this was mine. And so I'm just going to read that. This one was still so shocking to me. And then you'll understand. I'm going to read this to you. March 25th, 2025. You can still be the hero. It was a challenge to get you here. We hoped you would pay attention as the energies in your world disrupted your daily routine so that you might hear yourself and us. Please create the life and world you want and not the one you inherited. Then, March 25th, 2022. You are the hero. As you examine your world today, begin to think something has gone wrong and look for the person who will make things better. You will discover it is you. Now, you know the intention of our work. When you examine your life now and wonder how it could be any better, you will discover your answer in what we gave you in 2012. We will place it below, for we will continue to operate this way so more of you develop self-belief. If you will self-belief, it will be challenging for you to find yourself. It will be challenging for you not to find yourself in the message we will leave, for it is operating in your life now. We told Roger not to read the entire message, but place it below. He, like you, has had difficulty believing in his gift as you have, which is also why we are here. You will be fine. March 25th, 2012. You are always enough, and self-doubt is good. While that statement may seem conflicting, its subjective phrasing will help you understand your physical life journey on a deeper level. Your intention when you decided to come onto the physical plane was expansion. Every moment you are on the planet causes this to happen because you continually have new experiences. Every experience, whether you enjoy it or not, holds that very expansion. When you feel self-doubt, it is a call for greater expansion. Asking for that expansion means that it is always answered. It would help if you looked for it. And then at the bottom of the page, there is a video. It says, please watch this video. And it's a video of me, about 7 minutes, I think it is, saying, I uncovered the order of the, I uncovered the secret to world peace, is what I said, because I knew that that would be when more people move through their generational trauma, all their doubts, all their fears about who they are, do something wonderful, then the world would change. And that's what happened. And that's why you can be your hero now. Um, I've hidden this for so long, and I've gone through so many difficult, challenging times in my life, but they've all been for one reason, because I couldn't own myself. And I will say that that is the only reason for any of us. That's the only challenge or difficulty, that we can't own the newness that is us. Now, what we're experiencing now in this generational change is this push pull thing. Like, I'm going to stay where I am or I'm going to move forward. We're doing that in our lives, but the world is doing the same thing. There's no reason for wars. And that's what Wilhelm kept giving us all the time, because they come from the standpoint and the premise of all people are equal. We just are continually learning that. But what happens is we're all souls. So they always talk about you're an eternal spiritual being, means we've always been here. But the thing that came through in the very beginning of the first channeling sessions, that's what they wanted us to think about. If we've always existed, then we did bad things too. We did things in our past, in our lineage, that did not serve us. And so we have to decide to move through them and get over them. And then we live better lives and give that to others. But we're not going to all do that. Everyone's not going to do it. And that's when we see chaos. And that's where we see conflict. And they gave me the messages about that, gave us all that, about unity and conflict. And they said, you get rid of conflict when you move through it, when you can, because it'll cause you to ask new questions. And when you can sufficiently answer the questions about who you are and why you're allowing yourself to have the conflict, then things change. I had to continually ask myself yesterday why I was so angry. And the reason I was so angry is because I knew what was happening and I was holding it back and I wasn't willing to tell you or anyone. And so that's what's changing now. And when I did this, I put up certain things. I said, I know that no one has to, I know everyone is born with worth, value, and talent and abilities. It's just been blocked off. And I was given the work to have that open. But I will present that to people and they say it's not possible because you'll be like me. We have cognitive dissonance. We can't believe something is possible, which is one of the things that Wilhelm would do in our channeling sessions. They kept bringing up Roger Bannister. He was the first guy to run the sub 4-minute mile because we thought that wasn't possible as humans. Now there's 2,300 or something, 2,400 people who have done it since then. And so it's about the human ability, and we all have to be willing to embrace something new. And that's what I was supposed to do. My life, going through every horrible, challenging thing that I did, was to demonstrate this. And and I'm just going to say, because it came out in the channeling session, they were saying that my only problem was I couldn't grow back part of my foot. Because see, I lost part of my left foot years ago when I was going through a really horrible disease and illness, and all of it was, again, my resistance to and not taking care of myself or loving who I was. That's all of us. And so that's the only thing I haven't been able to change, was to grow back part of that. But I did learn how to walk again, because that was the other process that I had to move through. So I'm putting this out because I want others to understand. I was told years ago that I should have been changing. I should have been charging so much more money so I could get it to more people and build up. I didn't do that. Now I'm doing that now. But I put something out where other people, if they wanted to come in now, they could do it, but they won't do it. And I'm just saying this because you will stay in the same place because you don't think it can change, and you won't believe that this work could do it for you, even though you will hear so many other people say that, yes, it does. And I'm just bringing this up because this is human nature. I did the same thing. I couldn't believe that this was me. I was never going to channel, never going to do any of that. And I could not have known that this work was going to come produce a quantum philosophy. This is the thing again, and I'm just going to say it because I never talk about myself in this way, but artificial intelligence kept telling me this. They said, this has to be seen by others. They said people may not believe it for years later, but it has to be in the world because no one's ever done it before. Well, I'm receiving information, putting it together in an organized way that turned into a philosophy that incorporates cognitive behavior training, neuroscience, and epigenetics, all the things that cause humans to evolve and our planet to do the same thing. And that's what this work was. And they analyzed it and kept telling me, and I was holding it back. And that's when I'm changing now. And when I tell people there's no reason for you to suffer or struggle in your life, I do know that is true. And the only reason we do it is when we hold back. And that's what I've been doing. So I'm going to give that up so I become a better example. And thank you so much for being here. And I know that you're going to get so much out of this when I give you the other information. And you will see, because again, I can't. I can't watch our world do this knowing that I'm holding something so valuable that could cause people to become happy and move through all the old stuff, and we'd stop killing each other. That's what happens. So great. Thank you so much for being here. And there were a couple of people here. And so I don't know if anyone had questions or something, but I will answer them after the video's up and I will send them to you. That's the other thing too. I'm going to create something where if you have questions, you can send them and I can give you my best answers. I'm going to start doing things like that. And I'm going to figure out ways for other ways to bring this information out. But right now, this work is available for anyone. That's what I want to say. So, all right. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.